Okay, so now let's get into the good stuff with respect to the patches, because I am still like unclear on exactly how they work and what the technology is. So let's first discuss your I think your main patch, which is the X39, correct?
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
that's by far the most popular product we have.
Okay. Yeah. How exactly does it work? What is the technology? And then we'll get into some stories of healing that you've seen.
Okay, so since we talked a little bit about the past, at that time I had a research lab in Dahlonega, Georgia, and Dahlonega is where the Army Rangers train, and it was also the site of the gold rush in the U.S. And I was driving home and I'm driving around Lake Lanier, and I had invented this new type of turbine that used a vortex flow in order to generate power. And I was thinking, or I would say I was inspired with the thought that there must be a vortex flow inside of human cells. And and what if we could create a communication channel with this vortex flow? We might be able to communicate with cells and get them to do some interesting things. And so I worked on this idea for about 3 years and came up with the patches. And basically, the idea behind this is that we could stimulate the skin with very, very low levels of light in a specific way, so we could communicate with the cells and get them to do things like increase fat burning. And this would improve energy production in the body, along with other benefits. And over a period of 20 years, this technology was refined to do some very sophisticated things, such as mobilizing stem cells. But the basic tech is using very low levels of light, with those wavelengths of light being modulated, much like laser communications, so we can induce synthesis of specific peptides, which cause specific benefits like improved rates at which we heal.
It's incredible. So, with respect to the light that you're referring to, that may seem kind of confusing, especially for those who are using the patches. Like, well, I don't see anything. There's no chemicals. There's no light switch on these things. So, how exactly does that work? Because the patches are just things that you stick on your body. They look like a sticker. And then also, correct me if I'm wrong. There's no chemicals in them. There's nothing of that sort. It's simply using your body's infrared light and almost like reflecting it back to the body.
Yeah, so the body emits, as a result of metabolism, emits infrared light, and that's what body heat is. And we can pick this up with thermal imaging. And it's actually, thermal imaging is a tool that we use in a number of our clinical studies. But the patches do contain a number of organic materials. So they're sealed inside a high density polymer shell that doesn't allow any of those materials to come in contact with the skin. And they're stereoisomers of amino acid, sugars, oxygen, and they're in these water-based solutions. So what happens is you put the patches on the skin, they're activated by your body heat, and in turn, these materials will start to reflect specific wavelengths of light that will stimulate the skin. So this is a field of science known as photobiomodulation. There's thousands of studies that show that if you stimulate the skin with certain wavelengths of light, such as 850 nanometer in the infrared, 660 nanometer, these will turn on energy production in the cell and produce a number of benefits, such as pain relief. But what I did was I went one step further, where we modulate that wavelength of light to contain information, just like an FM or an AM radio. And now what we can do is we can cause synthesis of specific peptides like glutathione or like carnosine or like copper peptide.
So it's essentially communicating to your cells using light, and it's almost like signaling to your body to produce these certain types of peptides or generate stem cell production or things like this.
Well, we should keep in mind that this is the way that we were created. So, in other words, for thousands of years, we've been told that in, let's say, Eastern religion or philosophy, spirituality, that human beings are beings of light. And this, as it turns out, is has a basis in fact, and it's a field of study in biophysics, where you can take living cells, whether or not they be plant cells, animal cells, human cells, put them in a room that's completely dark, and use a device called a photomultiplier tube, where we can measure laser-like coherent emission of light from human cells. And these highly coherent pulses of light come from the DNA. And the reason why they're there is to initiate any number of biochemical reactions that occur. So human beings are designed to use light for communication. And what LifeWave is doing, and what all light therapy is doing, is tapping into this system to induce biochemical changes. And there's a huge body of evidence to support this. It's also self-evident. We go in the sun, and sunlight elevates vitamin D. Or if you go out, for men to go out in the sun and have sunlight stimulate their androgen receptors on their shoulders, they're going to elevate their testosterone. Or of course, light will induce production of melanin, which is an antioxidant. So it's self-evident that light induces biochemical changes in the body. So as long as we know the code by which this happens, then we can create devices such as LifeWave, which will tap into that system and produce beneficial health effects.